Hello everyone and welcome to the European Parliament. With me here today I have Marit Paulsen, a leading voice in Parliament for animal welfare. I have Andrea Gavinelli, who's the head of the Animal Welfare Unit at DG Sanko. And I have Ranneke Hameliers, who is the director of Eurogroup for Animal, the Federation for European Animal Welfare Organizations. So I'll start with Ranneke because Eurogroup for Animals has today launched a paper which urges the Commission to build a strong animal welfare framework law. Ranneke, perhaps you could introduce the document.
Yes, we thought that today, it's World Animal Day, was an ultimate occasion to present our views on this very important legislative perspective in Europe, because on this special day for animals and for supporters of animals, it's good to realize that animal welfare in Europe is still under great pressure, and that the European Union could play an important role to address severe problems and to close the gap between animal welfare, the concerns of Europeans, because a lot of citizens are concerned about animal welfare, and the European Union legislation. So this law could bridge that gap, but it's still not clear when and how it will also be put in place. So therefore, together with our members, we put together a position paper which reflects our ideas on what this law should encompass. And we are very happy that the founding mother, I should say, of the idea of the Animal Welfare Framework law is here today and with us, and that we had the opportunity to hand out our position paper to her, because some years ago animal welfare policies were evaluated in Europe, and Mrs. Paulsen was closely connected to that evaluation. So it was for us very important to present this paper to her.
So if I can ask Marit Paulsen then, how do you feel? You've been calling for this framework law for a long time, I think since 2010 officially. How do you feel today about how things have gone?
The opinion around the Parliament and the Commission is okay, but it is stop in the Commission today. I'm afraid they don't want to do an animal welfare framework law. I have to say I don't understand why. Because we are going to an election to the Parliament again in the springtime, and the animal welfare issues is very important for, I should say, a majority of the voters in Europe. And it is not only in my country or in the north of Europe, it's also in the south and in the east today. It is growing.
Perhaps I can ask Mr. Gavinelli then, are Marit Paulsen's fears justified that actually at the Commission there isn't a determination to produce a framework law?
I have to say that the Commission evaluated the policy on animal welfare of the last years and presented a strategy that envisaged, in fact, the possibility to develop a framework legislative instrument. There is clear-cut a commitment to improve and to fix the issue that today are not properly implemented about animal welfare. And in particular because we have an internal market and the demand to have a fair competitiveness by all the actors. The law is only one possible answer to the many issues that are in fact raised in the strategy and the possible solutions. The work on it will be for the next year in particular, and we respect, of course, the opinion of the Parliament on that. It's clear-cut that, as any legislative proposal, this process goes through an impact assessment procedure in which, in fact, you are looking into several options. Some of the solution could be also coming from the issue of subsidiarity, where in fact member state could be with proper tool taking up this duty.
So when you do this, sorry, I'll let Marit Paulsen come in there.
So when we are talking about the internal market, and we have a common agriculture policy in the European Union, it is absolutely necessary to have the framework law on the union level, not on the national level. Because today you have quite good laws in some member states, and in other member states you have no one at all. So also if we are talking, don't talk about the animal welfare, we can talk about the economy and market. It will still be absolutely necessary to have the common basic playing level.
So, if I may add to that, that's also one of the key arguments in our position paper, that a Eurogroup for Animals believes that besides animal welfare, it's perfectly justified for the European Union to take up this challenge and to put proper legislation in place, because animal welfare is not a standalone issue. It's closely connected to the environment, to human health, animal health, economic interests.
Yes.
Animals are moved and traded throughout Europe, and a lot of species are not protected at the moment. National legislation differ widely, so there's a distortion of the internal market. So we believe, yes, the moment is now.
Yeah, and just for the moment I'm working with our rapporteur for what's called the animal health law. I promise you it is not a health law. It is a law to control the communicable diseases, yes. And only the communicable diseases. And if we are talking about the free market and the necessity today to make the internal market better, if you have control of the communicable diseases, you have a more free market. Instead of say that we need the free market so we cannot handle the communicable diseases. We see it from a wrong side. We don't see the connections between the animal welfare, the animal health, the public health, the free market, so on. It is so close connected to each other. So if we take out this part we are discussing today, the animal welfare, we have to realize that it is one of the basic points for the rest of the chains we are discussing.
So, Mr. Gavinelli, how strong does that argument weigh then, that there is a duty to make the internal market function better?
It's clear we have done a huge effort in making the most important directive on animal welfare, like the one on the protection of laying hens, on the protection of pigs, being applied in practical terms everywhere the same. And this, the Commission has used really the stronger elements in its portfolio, like infringement proceedings and so on. It was a good test case to see also how different member states, but also stakeholders, were able to follow in this very strong line. And I have to say the result, in particular for the laying hens, has been successful, having a compliance that has been now nearly 100% of the European Union. Only 2 member states are in court. The problem, in fact, of the connection with the animal welfare requirement, we have the highest status for certain directives comparing with the rest of the world. But the connection with the way to enforce, the way to understand it, and so on, has been highlighted by the strategy too. It's true that more means are needed to encourage knowledge and understanding of the issue and capacity. It's true also, and I recognize what's said, that when we talk about animal disease, we don't talk only about communicable disease. It's not an issue only, it's not this type of disease that are affecting the health and the welfare of an animal. A mastitis in a bovine is a very painful disease. At the moment, is not part of the acquis. It's not a disease that we are caring about at the European Union. The question is, despite it's recognized being a problem for welfare, if we have competence to help the member state to treat and to get better in controlling this disease. That's what is the work of the impact assessment, in a certain sense, to be done in the next year.
So a quick question for the proponents of a framework law. Is there enough in the strategy? Europe already has a strategy. It has some of probably the world's highest animal welfare standards already.
Oh, but I think that all the ingredients are there now also to develop this animal framework law. Because indeed we have some legislation in place. We have a very important article in the treaty. Article 13, which recognizes that animals are sentient beings. We have a proper evaluation of the animal welfare policies in the EU. We have indeed an animal welfare strategy, so everything is there. But now the challenge is to develop a good law for animal welfare. And besides that, we are really positive also about the opportunities. We welcome this law. We are also a bit concerned that this law might water down existing legislation. Because, for example, in the animal welfare strategy, it is suggested that this law should also contain science-based indicators. And for example, that an indicator could mean that appropriate stocking density should be there for pigs and broilers. And we think, okay, that's true, but besides that, we need specific requirements. We need a precise language to which also farmers and other operators should comply. So that's one of our concerns. But in general, we believe that this law could solve a lot of problems and increase the consistency and the coherence of existing legislation.
Okay. Yeah. I'd just like to ask Marit Paulsen, what would be, in a best case scenario, what would be the timing of getting a framework law in place?
It should be possible, as it said in the strategy, that we get the proposal after the next election, next year, 2014, in the beginning of the autumn. And then it should be possible to land the law in 2015, and maybe it is in function the 1st of January 2016. Should be possible. But that's a dream.
I see
it a very ambitious program for us. Having stated also the Commissioner quite recently that in fact 2015 is more as a possible target because of the process of impact assessment that is needed and the work to be done. We have, in fact, several stakeholders to be consulted at the same. And in fact, the ingredients are there, but this is how to mix up the ingredients, the most important problem.
Yeah.
And I think that for all of us who is working for an animal welfare law, I think one of our best arguments today it is an economical and financial good thing to do. It will give us a better market, it will give us a higher quality of food and so on. So if we change our way to make the opinion, maybe it is a step forward. I don't know, but you know, today it is very often that I believe that animal welfare should be very expensive and make the market lower and closer. But that's not true.
No.
No, this is true.
It's about a sustainable way
Yep.
also of dealing with welfare environment and thinking in terms of also long-term solutions and not only in the short term.
Mr. Gavinelli, you agree with that thought?
That surely I agree on the fact that the issue of the welfare of animals is becoming central to many policies that are profitable for the farming industry. This is also scientific proven. So there is a clear cut, there are new elements in the scenario, and the interface of animal welfare with other issues like in fact preservation of the environment, but food quality, are recognized also outside the EU. There are countries around the world, a major trade player like Brazil, for example, that just signed a memorandum of understanding on animal welfare with the European Union. This is an important political message.
Yeah, and I think one important thing also to mention, we haven't mentioned that so far, is that this possible law could also focus on prevention, to invest in education. But one of the tools which is mentioned is the animal welfare reference centers. These centers could have a very important role when it comes to enforcement, inform, educate citizens and empower consumers. And I think that that's in the interest of the whole of every animal welfare legislation which is already in place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, well that's all we have time for. Thank you all very much for taking part.
Thank you.